So you've probably seen a bunch of these videos I've done with my friend Tyler Crow here. And whenever we do bull versus bear arguments, he usually takes the latter. And usually he makes some really good points because it points out things about stocks that I like that I haven't really thought of yet. He talked me off the ledge when it came to innovative industrial properties, just to name one example. But one of my favorite stocks, and actually the first REIT I ever bought in my portfolio, is called Realty Income. Ticker symbol is O. And the reason that I've never even suggested a bull bear case on this one, because I don't really see that much of a bear case other than maybe the growth will be slower than some of these like more big exciting REITs just because of its size. Realty Income, just kind of a quick 30-second introduction. It's a net lease REIT. It specializes in single tenant freestanding properties, mostly leased to retail tenants. Walgreens is a top tenant. FedEx is a top tenant. All the major dollar stores are top Realty Income tenants. Just to name a few, it owns 12,000 properties located in the US and Europe. The Europe expansion is relatively new. And all of its tenants are pretty much handpicked, so they're not only recession resistant, but not too vulnerable to e-commerce disruption as well, which is a big concern in retail right now. So my first thought when Tyler suggested a bull versus bear argument here was that he's got nothing to say here. But I want to know, what am I missing, or what should I at least keep in mind when I'm trying to have a balanced mindset about this one?
It's always glowing reviews. So I started picking around and was like, well, can I make a case for maybe why not right now? And one thing that stood out to me is the returns on total on capital have started to deteriorate a little bit. So if I go back over the past 10 years from about 2013 to 2020, you could basically set your watch to the returns on capital for Realty Income. It was somewhere between 2.8 and 3.1%. It was, as old faithful as they come in terms of returns. 2021, 2022, we've started to see a deterioration in returns. 2021, 1.95, 2022, 1.84. This also just happens to coincide in a time when they made a very large, significant, out of its particular scope investment with the Encore Casino in Boston, with Wynn being its tenant. Now, I'm not saying that it was a bad deal necessarily, but it doesn't seem like a coincidence to me that we saw a deterioration in profitability and returns for this company when it started to make large acquisitions outside of what we would consider the core tenants, the core properties that Realty Income has done for a long time. Now, perhaps this is just an aberration, right? Like this was a one-time deal. They thought they saw something, and maybe a couple of years they're like, yeah, maybe this wasn't the best idea, and we're just going to stick to what we do, and we'll see a return to those return on capital numbers that we've kind of grown to know from this company. But if they don't, we could start to see a deterioration in its returns and its cash flow and all those things. And so it's not to the level of like, oh yeah, I need to be selling my stock or anything like that, but I'm not super jazzed about buying it right now. And that is going to be a point that I would pay particular attention to in the coming quarters and in the coming years to see if we can get back to those levels of return, or if it starts to become a empire building business, which is, we'll get as big as we want, returns be damned.
I'm wondering if the 2021-2022 compression that you're referring to, not only because of the Encore National Harbor, which was bought at a pretty low cap rate, but was just due to just kind of the explosion in commercial real estate valuation that we saw in that time. Because Realty Income has always been able to borrow money very cheaply and sell equity at very good valuations and things like that. They've done a great job of managing cost of capital historically. Like you mentioned, you could set your watch to it, the kind of returns they were going to pull in. But there's a lower limit to the cost of capital they could achieve. And I'm wondering if it was because of cap rate compression in 2021, 2022, because, you can't borrow money for less than zero. So I'm wondering if it was the cap rate compression that really just kind of led to the poor returns. Because, as you mentioned, they grew a lot in those 2 years.
Yeah,
So
and again, like this isn't a one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm scared, I'm bearish on this company, but it was enough of like an outlier in these 2 years where I'm like, I feel like that's could be important and something to watch.
once again, thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to click subscribe if you don't subscribe to my channel already. And as always, this video is sponsored by The Motley Fool. Be sure to visit www.fool.com/Frankel to receive the top 10 best stocks to buy now.